So, I'll start today by actually doing what I said that I would do, which is exploring different roles. And first on the list is the warden. One of the prerequisites is that the warden must have his or her own chamber. And so I focus on building a chamber in the mines below. And because of popular... And because of popular demand, I've decided to rename Bertrand here to Shimmy. Yeah, Shimmy suits her better. You're no captain though, but you are going to be the colony's new warden. Oh, and spoiler alert, yes, I did make the mining chambers into prison cells, though I'm pretty sure you only need one room for all your prisoners. But I'm here to make things look good, so yeah, I made multiple of them, but more of that later. I have also expanded on the chamber just to have enough space for Shimmy. I later on changed the wooden walls into limestone block walls, because my jailer deserves better. She already is living under the mines, might as well make her chamber as comfortable and as pretty as much as possible. It took the whole day to also lay in the flooring, but safe to say that I've finished the room today, and all that's left were the interior furniture. So, as I've mentioned not even a minute ago, here I am making the different mining chambers into prisoner cells. I've outfitted each room with a prisoner stash, prisoner cell marker, torches, and a hay bed. Not even sure if that's necessary though, and with those built, Shimmy was officially named Prison Warden. Congratulations! I also started to finish the interior furniture for the Lord's room, and I honestly believe this room is rightfully David's. He, after all, is the founder of Dartford. I've also done some hunting later that day because people were starting to get hungry. I know, it's another thing I said I would do. And I will, I promise. The next thing I wanted to get was the bard. And the prerequisite of that is to have a great hall. So I was adding in the things that were needed to finally make this room a great hall. I also did some micro work on the schedules of my settlers. I've assigned dedicated cooks and have scheduled them to start their days earlier than the rest to get some food cooking for the rest of the colony. Aside from that, I've also continued working on the Great Hall, and I've also started to mine out the rest of the storage area beside the workshop. Again, I find myself fixing my settlers' schedule and tasks, assigning roles to respective settlers such as the cooks, the farmers, the builders, and the miners. I left the hauling to my dogs. I have no idea why this was still not a great hall. I know I put everything needed for the room type. Oh, I found the culprit. Silly me, I didn't notice these shrines stuck behind these walls and floors of the castle. And now that I finally have a great hall, I then assigned Osfrith to be a bard, entertaining settlers and guests during feasts with lovely music or some dramatic poetry or storytelling. But he was neither of the latter, so more of just music really. This will go down in the chronicles as Dartford has hosted its first feast on the 8th day of spring of year 1359. And why was there a feast, you might ask? Well, I have some spare meals and ales now, and to that the colony has earned to feast. And just really to see what it looks like. Oh, look at that! That's so cool! Everybody's enjoying each other's company while Osfrith is playing the lyre in the background. And just like that, the first feast was a success. Nice! Okay, you might think that I'm lollygagging here, but I swear I was not gagging on some lollies.
It's kinda sus.
That came out wrong. As the next one I'm considering was the chaplain. Now why a chaplain and not a druid? Well, it's also been brought to my attention that it would be best for the colony if we just focus on one religion, because if both were present, then the settlers would just keep on jumping from one religion to the other. And that really made sense to me. And so just to be lore friendly as well, I thought that it would best fit that a mini church would be built inside this walled fort of a city. And well, since there's going to be a new project, we all know what comes next. The activity that we all know and love. Mining. I also took out the hill at the back here, just decided to not want it there anymore. The following morning started with the construction of the storage room for the workshop. How much y'all bet that they'd leave one? They always do. You know, one of these days, the devs would give us an answer why that is. The following morning started with the digging of the hill I queued a couple of days ago. And soon after that was done, I then queued the other part of the hill that expands towards the east side of the castle. I'll need a whole lot of space for my farming. Later that day, I was also notified that Shimmy was eligible for a promotion. And so I made her into a warden too. Congratulations! I also wanted Osfrith to get the promotion, and so I looked at the requirements of the bard too. Other than serving 4 more days as a bard, I'll need to put a wall mirror in his room. And it looks like his speech level is about to hit the minimum requirement as well, so I'll have to work on that by making Osfrith do all the trading that needs to be done in the settlement. I don't exactly know which item gives me the greatest amount of XP per transaction. All I know is that I have a lot of excess beeswax to trade, so I traded a lot of it away. Also to make space in my storage room. Then it was just mining from dusk till dawn. And again the following day. Blighted crops did however disturb me midday, but nothing we can't handle. And by the next morning, I worked on mining the stone walls of the northeastern tower and turned them into limestone block walls, just to make things neater and pleasing to look at. I was torn this morning as I had to choose between Jill and Sweet Lou in becoming the settlement's chaplain. But one thing's for sure, I'll need to have a restitutionist chapel built first before I could promote either settler to become a chaplain. While I was out back digging stone voxels, an extortionist arrived and appeared at the edge of the world. You know, this would be a perfect opportunity to finally get some prisoners, so I'll look forward to that. Alright, just to explain what I'm doing here, because you'll see a whole lot of this much later, I'm removing stone voxels and exchanging in dirt voxels, so I'd have more fertile soil to plant my garden for the endgame. And oh, Osfrith is eligible to become a bard too. And so I did. Congratulations! Well, nothing much happened today other than working on the garden soil, so I'll go ahead and skip through today. Well, that was very uneventful. So much for looking forward to the first prisoners. I paused the game for today because I wanted to lay out the chapel I was building. If you've watched some of my old videos, this chapel might ring a bell. If not, then I'll go ahead and link that video over here on the top right corner. Again, just to explain things, the back room is where the chaplain will be living. The middle part is where the actual activities would happen. And the smallest square as well, aesthetics. That will be the bell tower. Now don't ask me why or where the bell is in the game. Churches and chapel IRL in general have bell towers. They just do okay. I've also dug out a small area in one side of the chapel which I'll put the stairs in. 2 sets of stairs will be built along this side of the chapel. One set going up the bell tower, and the other set leading down towards the burial chambers for our settlers who have gone ahead of us. And those voxels that I dug around the chapel, I will fill those in with the soil and eventually plant red currant shrubs surrounding the chapel. Now enough explaining and more building. Once all foundation have been built, I then laid out the interior furniture such as the Church of Restitution wall decoration, a large restitution shrine, and the restitution lectern in the main chapel. I also put the interior furniture for the chamber of the chaplain. This room would have the same things as the other chambers have, just to avoid jealousy amongst my settlers. And by nightfall, I've laid in the roofing for the sleeping chambers and the second floor for the restitution chapel. And this carried over until the following day. The restitution chapel felt a little empty, so I placed in 2 more restitution shrines right beside the 2 sets of stairs. And by the 10th day of summer, it was time to work on the roofing of the chapel, and as well as the 3rd floor of the bell tower. And by the next day, I finished the roofing of the bell tower. Later that day, the restitution chapel was completed. Well, technically. I dedicated today to tidying things up and planning the courtyard. For the courtyard, I first laid out limestone block floors that would connect the castle and the chapel. And yeah, no, that was it, lol. For now, that is. I also decided to transfer Osfrith's room from the 3rd level of the castle to the 1st level of the castle, because it would be in the same level as the Great Hall, where he would be working as a bard. And so, I got to working by placing in a door and queued in the voxels that need to be mined out for his chamber. Today, I worked on the backyard garden again, replacing stone voxels with soil voxels. I have also laid out some flooring in Osfrith's room as well today. With Sweet Lugius a practicing restitutionist and Jill a restitutionist zealot, the choice was a no-brainer for me. Congratulations, Jill. You are now the colony's chaplain. I then decided that on the 5th day of autumn of year 1359, Dartford will have its first Eucharist event. Not really sure what I'm doing here, but I'm adding all the wine that I can until I've maxed out the event quality. And once that was done, it was time to start the Eucharist event. Alright, so far it feels like a meditation thing. Everybody's just gathered to pray while the chaplain is leading the prayer and then also has the action of swinging a thurible back and forth. Cool! I continued to work on Osfrith's room the following day, so that I could also finally move Etheldreda to Osfrith's old room on the 3rd floor of the castle, and finally destroy the old hut my settlers have been using for the past 200 days. I also felt like I needed more manpower in the last few days of this series, so I was back recruiting any settlers that came by knocking at our door. Welcome, Osborne, to the city of Dartford. Well, I don't have any more space inside the castle, so I guess I'll just have to make you and any future settler that I'll add a small settlement right outside the city walls. Finally, I've also got to finish Osfrith's room today. Well, technically, just a few more walls and it's done. But I've started placing in the furniture of the room. The attackers following Osborne finally arrived later that day. But I'll skip out on the killing as I'm looking forward to the first few prisoners I'll get. Well, that's not right. No prisoners? Really? Guess it'll be one of those if I can't have you, no one can type of situations. So I made sure to kill them all. By the way, we almost lost David during the incursion, but luckily, he just got injured and not killed. It would have been too soon for Dartford to lose its king. By the following morning, the old residential house was demolished, and I was a few walls away in completing my curtain walls, something I didn't expect to say 200 days later. I have also added in a couple more limestone block floors in the courtyard that would eventually lead into the garden. I've started laying out the fences that would space out my garden neatly. Also, to stop the spread of any blight. This was also a better way for me to just dig what I had to dig, since I don't need all voxels to be soil anyways, since some have fences and some will have paths on them. I did more garden work the following day. I've also thought of placing my skeps here in the middle of my garden, so I built a nice little hut to cover the skeps from the rain. Again, more garden work was done today, setting garden plots to priority for my farmers and filling in mined out holes with soil to be used for more farming. And this carried over until days 338 and 339. I noticed some of my settlers were getting annoyed because they are not able to worship their deity. And well, like I said in the beginning of this 400 days, I want Dartford to be predominantly restitution worshippers. And so I decided that day, I will try to slowly convert those who still worship the Oak Brethren by holding a Eucharist event and inviting everyone to partake in this event. Out with the old and in with the new, as one would say it. And while that was happening in the background, I went on and worked on the fences in the garden. And by the following day, this is what I have blueprinted. Now I wanted to beautify the place a little bit more, so I thought of making these stone voxels into dirt as well, so I can plant more red currant shrubs, and as well as apple trees. I've also started to mine out the stone voxels inside my garden plots as well. And for the rest of this day, I just overwatch my settlers accomplish all the tasks I've queued for them to do. I've also started to lay in windows in the towers. I just thought that the towers needed a little more oomph to them, and not just regular stony walls. To ensure my settlers' safety outside of the castle walls, I had to mine and dig out any voxel that can have access to them. Now, I just hope no incursions will occur while I'm still doing this. Again, just more garden work here. And another uneventful day for today, just overwatching my settlers once more accomplish their tasks. I also thought of changing the variations of some of the corner walls just to add more details, other than just having them blocky and boring. And I finished the day with more of the garden work. And that carried over until days 347, 348, and 349. And because I've ran out of soil, it was time for me to get soil from somewhere else. So I've started mining this small hill to the east of my castle. I spent this morning fixing the prioritization of each farm plot in the garden. I've also started to relocate some of the skeps from the animal pen into the garden. And by midday, we were visited by a negotiator from the clan of the Ravagers. And I say let them come. And now that I've got some more dirt in my inventory, it was time to go back to my gardening work, filling in the holes with dirt voxels. And by afternoon, I was working on the last bit of garden plot. Soon I'll have plenty of crops and vegetables growing in the garden. Oh right, the Ravagers. Well, they came, and we did quick work with them. And finally, prisoners. Now I must admit, I forgot how to use them as laborers, so don't expect much. They literally were just extra mouths to feed for the rest of the playthrough. You know, I honestly thought that Shimmy brought all 3 prisoners to the cells. But apparently not. Well, at least we got one. Nothing else happened this day other than the most notable thing that I did, which was to relocate the skeps from the animal pen to the garden. This was also the first time I was visited by a slave. Friendly merchant. He says he has some friends looking for work for a fee. Man, 200 gold? These are very expensive laborers you're asking me to employ. I'll take some of your gold and I'll take the cheapest one. And because of the recent trade, Shimmy is now eligible to become a Warden 3. Well deserved. Congratulations. I wanted to change the front door here, but since the game wouldn't allow me, I'll put back the old design. If it's not broke, don't fix it, I guess. And, well, for the rest of the day, it was more garden work. And the following morning, I also promoted Jill to Chaplain 2. Congratulations. I also experimented with the mechanics of the Warden. Like I said, I wanted to make them mine for me, but I simply forgot how. I do apologize that you guys won't see them mining here. Maybe in my underground base series. And because Osfrith needed just a few more levels for his speech skill to be promoted to Bard 3, I did some good old trading. I traded for heaps of items for my own heaps of items.
What?
The trade just took that long, okay? I didn't want to itemize each one. What's important is now I got Osfrith's skill up to 15. Just 5 more to go. And before the day ended, I promoted Jill once more to Chaplain 3. 2 promotions in a day. Congratulations! It was time to go serious mode on my food production. To start having a dependable source of food, I've started to plant different types of crops and vegetables in my garden, like carrots, cabbages, and barley, just to name a few. And because I went serious mode yesterday, I went on focus on finishing this last garden plot for my barley mixed with apple trees farm. And that carried over until the next day while I was fixing the variations of the limestone block floor paths I had going through the garden. I was bothered again with some of my settlers being unhappy because they couldn't worship their Oak Brethren deity. And so I hosted another Eucharist event today only focusing on the settlers who are worshipping the Oak Brethren. I've decided to put the small restitution shrine over here so that my settlers will not have to go to the church or to the 3rd or 4th floor of the castle to worship. Aside from this spot, I'll also spread them around the vicinity of the settlement as well. See, look at that, being used already. Nice! I overwatched my settlers plant carrots and herbs the following day. I also instructed them to mine out the last bits of stone voxels in the garden. I find myself once again fixing my settlers' schedule this morning. I just couldn't get the hang of it, really. It feels like you'll always have to keep on adjusting their schedule, especially if your settlement gets bigger and bigger, and with more things to do. And no joke, this is the only thing that I did for today. Well, that and trading. Only 4 more levels to go. Since I didn't have any access to a bunch of barley, I made these 2 medium fields into flax fields first. Now, I didn't really have the need for extra linen, but whatever, maybe I could trade them in the future. I also remembered that the windows have variations now, and so I thought of playing around with them, and I must say, I like how it turned out. I honestly might keep using this kind of design in my future playthroughs.
It was perfect. Perfect.
Alright, just a few more and my garden will be complete. I also began removing some red currant shrub plots and will exchange them for some apple tree plots, so that my apple trees are scattered everywhere in the garden. It felt kind of dark here too, so let me just go ahead and place some torches around the shed. Again, just more garden work. I also hosted another Eucharist event today, but this time around I had a guest chaplain from the Faithful Sons of England. But it felt weird because he was an Oak Brethren zealot. Not sure if this was a bug, so I just made him participate instead of leading the ceremony. You're not converting us, boy, we'll convert you. And everyone had an unforgettable experience with today's event. I'll go ahead and skip today because this is all I did for the rest of the day. And since I was always running out of wood and sticks, I'll make a bigger tree farm right behind the small settlement outside the castle walls. Hopefully that would produce enough wood and sticks for my kingdom. And finally, I've done the lower part of the barley farm. Time to add in some apple tree farm plots. I've also decided to move the flax fields over here. And yes, I will turn the other two medium flax fields back into barley fields. Time to add in the barley fields. Before the day ended, again I traded away my heaps of stuff for more heaps of stuff. And only 2 more levels to go before Osfrith can become a Warden 3. I wanted to add a little something to the sides of the church as well. So I started to do some little gardening work here once more. I thought of adding another shrine here as well, just to make the need to worship their deity more accessible all around the castle. And now that they've filled in the hole, I put 2 apple tree farm plots and filled the rest of the space with the red currant shrubs. I honestly don't have any idea what I was trying to accomplish here because I find myself jumping one place to another, simply waiting for all the tasks to be done. I also wanted to move my merchant stall somewhere in the vicinity, and so I expanded the paths to the left of the church. This will be like a mini plaza of some sort, having a bonfire in the middle of the market, or, well, in between 2 merchant stalls. And speaking of bonfires, I wanted to add one in the Great Hall as well. And so I demolished the 2 innermost sets of stairs and built a new set in either side. And once those were demolished, in goes the fire pit. These chairs and table also need a revamp, so I'll be changing them to a more comfortable and more aesthetically pleasing set of table and chairs. This happened overnight. And well, I'm just happy it's not spreading all throughout the garden. And with just enough chairs built, our Great Hall was built again. This is what I mentioned not a minute ago. I'll be adding in 2 merchant stalls in my mini plaza, and eventually, after all the variation changes to the floors, I'll be adding in the fire pit. Honestly, it would have been better if there's like a fountain type of building, but this will do for now. There we go, and since traders are here, I'll have Osfrith trade some items so I can finally promote him to a Bard 3. And because it's been a long while, and since we've completely decked out our Great Hall, I'll be hosting a feast in honor of my hard-working settlers. Look at that, everybody's so happy. If only it was always like this. No drama, no chaos, just pure bliss. I've also started to mine through here to lessen travel time from the courtyard to the Great Hall. The roof of the castle seemed dark, so I had some braziers built. And by some, I mean a heck ton of it. I also got another settler. Boyd was his name. And well, I'll need all the extra pairs of hands I can get to help finish all that I have to do in these last few remaining days. And so, I built another house in the settlement outside the castle walls. And by the end of the following day, they were about 60% done with Boyd's house. Desperate times calls for desperate measures, and that's what I did today. Because I couldn't wait anymore for the next trader to come by, I got my things and went to the neighboring cities just so I can get Osfrith's speech skill to 20. I didn't know my animals could climb ladders. And finally, as soon as Osfrith got to his location, the trade takes place. Once again, trading most of their items for more of mine. And with that, Osfrith finally levels his speech to 20. Now come back home. And while I was waiting for Osfrith's arrival, the Ravagers attacked us with a vengeance. It's already late at night and a man short, but rest assured, I made quick work with the invaders. And because last night's incursion had trebuchets with them, I spent this whole day repairing walls, floors, windows, and doors. So I'll skip right through this day. But before I do, I promoted Osfrith to Warden 3. Congratulations! Not gonna lie, I expected them to be done with the repairs by now, but no. No one has work on Boyd's house, so I'll skip to the next day. Oh, lol, I didn't even notice that the trebuchets have managed to break through some of the flooring of the eastern wall. Let me just patch that up right quick. Now I was just analyzing something here, because for some odd reason, I'm having issues with food production, and at this point I was just making packaged meals. And one of the resources for the packaged meals was fabric, in which my settlers must go back to the ground floor, only to go back down the other side into the storage room, get leather, and then go back up to the ground floor, only to come back here in the ground floor kitchen. Clearly something must be done here. So in the following morning, I went and dug an accessway from my fermentation room into the workshop. Surely this would make some difference with the food production. I've also begun hunting to resupply my stock of meat, just to make sure I have enough food to be made into packaged meals. My meal stockpile was still dwindling, and so in the early hours of day 387, I had to micro David into cooking meals, one after the other. And here you can also see the pathfinding David makes in getting the resources needed for the packaged meals. And finally, after 10 in-game days, Boyd's house was finished. Nothing else important happened that day as I see myself just observing and micromanaging their lives in the kitchen. Ay, you nitwits. Why are you planting when there's a cold snap taking place? And again, more micromanagement in the kitchen. I feel like towards the late game, when you finally built the kingdom of your dreams, it will all boil down to food management, which includes the production of food, whether through hunting or farming, which really is the endgame dilemma. Need I say more on what I'm doing here? But kidding aside, at least they've started to work on the accessway I've tasked them to dig out about 4 days ago. And oh, I've also tweaked their schedules for the nth time. I haven't talked about this part of the castle, but I was finishing the entire look of this tower, and unfortunately, I have caused a concave. But nothing our trusty hammers can't fix. And they also have finished the mini accessway connecting the kitchen and the workshop. Yay! And while I was queuing in more stone voxels to be mined out, another settler came knocking at my doorstep. Osbert was his name, and he was seeking protection from the Society of Fellows. And with the addition of Osbert, it was time to make another home. Nothing really important happened in between the speed build and this, so don't worry if days are passing by quick. And alas, an incursion occurs. The Society of Fellows appear on the edge of the map determined to kill, burn, and destroy anyone and anything in their path. But I don't think they've met my impregnable Barbican before, and because this would be the last time I will be showing this, for old time's sake, here's a kill montage of the incursion. Satisfying as always. No new prisoners and one got away to tell the tales of the battle at Dartford 1361. Oh, I didn't even notice it that they've already finished Osbert's house. Nice! The next few days are pretty uneventful, as I just worked on this part of the tower here on days 394, 395, 396, and 397. What can I say? I was really determined to finish it. And after I finished that, it was once again time for rejoicing and celebrating. This would be the last time Dartford would hold a feast. And to make things even more special, we had a special guest that performed in the feast, giving Osfrith a much-deserved rest to be one with the townspeople of Dartford. With the last few days rolling in, I actually have no idea what else to do for this series other than to just plant, I guess. But making another 100 Days series dedicated to planting is pretty boring. I don't think anyone would actually enjoy watching that. And if you do, what's wrong with you? And for one last time, I've also held Dartford's last Eucharist event. Unforgettable indeed. So I guess this is it. This is the end for this Going Medieval 100 Days series. I would say that I've done everything that I can do in the game, other than to make a temple, use the gallows, and have the prisoners do the mining work. But aside from that, I started out as a lone wolf in hard mode, survived for 400 days without losing any of my settlers, have built an amazing castle, and promoted 3 settlers to max roles. I must say that making this type of content is really creativity heavy, something I ran out of and must take a break from for a while. So, is the next video going to be another Going Medieval 100 Days series? Most probably not. But will there ever be another 100 Days series? Yes, of course. I just don't know when. But until that day comes, I hope you guys will continue to support what I do. I'm Matiro, and I'll see you guys in the next video.